Hi, Jean-Claude. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Catherine. How are you?
I'm good, good, good. I'm yes, so much to talk about tonight and everything. But before we get started, we are live streaming to both our channels. So I just want to remind all of my listeners just to make sure that they go to your YouTube channel as well, Beyond Mystic. You're on Beyond Mystic 3 now, aren't you? To like and hit that subscribe and share channel. But you're building up really well, aren't you now? It's really getting momentum again.
Yeah, we're getting momentum again. And I kind of had a dream yesterday. I'm like, oh, this is about usually where they shut me down. So hopefully, knock on wood, this third channel, the third time's a charm, so to speak. So we'll see. But yeah, we're above 40,000 now. We're not quite where we were the last time we were deleted. It takes time to rebuild the community every time they do this, but it's part of the game for sure.
Yeah, it's the same with me. Mine's not back up to where it was before yet, but we're getting there. So anyone watching on Jean-Claude's, please do go to mine and hit the like and subscribe. I was just saying, obviously, you and Janine have been doing loads of your pay for view ones where you can do uncensored, and I've been doing quite a few BitChute ones, so I have to remind myself when I'm on these lives to watch my language. So what is happening with you?
Well, it's funny you say that before you start, because what I have two pay-per-views to record today with Janine right after this show, and oftentimes we catch ourselves and we're like, wait, can we say that here? So the pay-per-view, of course, even there, we're kind of like gun shy because we're so used to doing like 95% of our stuff is free here on YouTube. So we're used to curbing our language to the point where when we do the uncensored, we're like, wait, yes, we can say what we mean. All right, let's do it. So anyways, I'm looking forward. We have 2 episodes to record today on pay-per-view, and then we're back tonight for the live stream on YouTube. So it's a busy day today on Monday. Lots happening, of course.
Lots happening. I had an exciting weekend because my daughter managed to fly back from the States. So she was flying back from Washington. So I must say, with everything that's going on, I'm pretty relieved to have her back in the UK at this time. So that's really good.
Good for you.
Yeah, I know it is quite a relief as well. So what are things like with you over there? Last week when we spoke a couple of weeks ago, the passes were being implemented and things were not going in the right direction.
Well, yeah, last week the government decided to go even further into their implementation plan. So it's scary for a lot of people right now. And we're going down to the wire with the federal public service also now being forced to take the thing here to keep their jobs. And we're seeing now high-level public service, not in mainstream news, but what we're seeing is behind the scenes, they're surveying their staff, their teams or whatnot to see where this is going to fall. And so it appears there's some nervousness there because, of course, there's all of these lawsuits now and these lawyers who are preparing these class action lawsuits, and they're chomping at the bit here at these new, what anybody can describe as draconian measures. So nevertheless, with all of that opposition and that fear, the government is still moving forward with their agenda. Again, like you and I said, they don't have a choice. So they're pushing as hard as they can. What will be interesting to see, because Canada, we're kind of like late in the game. All of this started in the East and then, started making its way to the West. So as other countries are already in the streets fighting and showing their dismay with these mandates and these paper requirements, if we call them that, that hasn't hit Canada yet. But I'm assuming very shortly it will, because again, they keep bombarding us with these fake polls on the news. Oh, the majority of Canadians agree, and the majority of Canadians agree. I'm like, who are you polling? The people I talk to don't agree. And so there's a big difference between what the polls are saying on the TV to try to tell us, everything's okay, we all agree, this is where we're going. And of course, now we heard, I think it was today or last night, that the BBC, our Canadian counterpart, but in your neck of the woods, has now reported that Facebook is cutting all access to the news to people in Australia. So again, if everybody agrees, why are they taking all of these measures to hide the information from the audience? It's absolutely mind-boggling to see what's happening.
It really is, isn't it? I mean, one of the countries, I love this. Hi, Dorit's welcome to my world in Israel. And I must just say, I love this. California. That's really good, isn't it? I love that. I've got a really good friend because I do a lot of work in Lithuania, believe it or not. And yeah, I've got a really good friend in Lithuania, and it's pretty horrendous there. Let us know if anyone's joining us from Lithuania. But they were saying they're really standing up against it and not supporting the companies that are complying and things. So there are some really brave companies that are really not complying, and Lithuania is not the easiest place to say no to because they're pretty severe in their reprimands when you don't do what they say. So, you know, there are still people that are standing up and doing it, but it's a difficult one. I can see the challenge for everyone, but I think, you know, I've seen a lot of people talking this weekend saying, you know, it is the people, we the people do have the power, and we have to say no en masse. I mean, what do you think about that? What do you think people can do that have got businesses and are being enforced to do this, or people losing their jobs?
Oh, we're getting into difficult territory here when you get into the advice. Of course, if you saw those people who made some comments on Facebook 6 months ago in Australia, they just had the cops break down their door at 2 a.m. yesterday. So you're like, whoa, they're going to use all of this against us. But what I can say is nonviolence, nonviolence, nonviolence. I can't repeat that enough. What we need to do, and there's somebody in the chat saying, Jean-Claude, what you're describing is what Cliff High calls the overwoo. That's what we need continue to keep pushing on, is sharing the woo, or sharing the truth, so to speak here. And the more we do that, the more people are waking up. And the more people are waking up, the more the government is taking extreme measures to keep control. And as they keep doing these extreme measures, more people wake up, and it's a snowball effect. It's an exponential effect. So it's a time game, I think, at this point. We need to hold our ground. I think time is working against them, whoever, you know, if you want to call it the bug or whoever's behind all of this, the time is against them, really. So we need to be strategic, and we need to share that truth as much as we can at every opportunity. So if you're a YouTuber, yes. If you're not, your family dinner on the weekend, even though it might not be popular to do so. We just had Thanksgiving here in Canada yesterday. And so a lot of those conversations were happening at the dinner table. And it's funny. Well, two things I want to share with the audience. On Friday, we had some of these gifts that I had to mail out. So I went to the post office on Friday. And I have to be honest, lovely lady, and she's been there maybe 40 years. Okay, so this is a 40-year-old employee of Canada Post. She's been there, you know, since the beginning of her career. And to describe it nicely, she's very regime oriented. Let's put it that way. Okay. I was thinking of Germany, a word to use, but you know, anyways. And for the last couple of months, I would see her as I go to my post office box, kind of berate some of the people who went into the post office with their mask on incorrectly and all this. And she was just like, you know, very, very strict. But this Friday, this woman who was extreme supportive of this regime, this last Friday, she was completely on the other side. And I just like, seriously? So I engaged her a little bit more, because I always said, oh, you know, I try to keep open-minded about things, and I try to look at things from the bigger picture. And I never assaulted her directly on her thoughts. But this time around, she was completely on the opposite side. So happens that her husband is losing his job. He's also at the federal government now. Happens that her daughter is having some issues with this too now. And now it's hitting her close to home, and she's realizing, wait, this has all gone way, way, way too far. So it was funny to see that staunch supporter suddenly become on the other side of the fence. So that was kind of good news to me anyways, because I'm saying, wow, if the local regime operators, if you want to call them that, are starting to turn here, how much further do we have to go to see big changes here? How much further do we have to go to see that maybe in our mainstream media too? So I thought that was encouraging. Now on Saturday night, Sarah and I did go to dinner. It was her birthday, so we were invited with a group of friends. And again, we have to sit on the segregated patios because we're not allowed inside the restaurants. And we were counting, there was not one table available in the patio. And yet most of the tables inside the restaurants were empty. And we are in, okay, so October 11th. It's cold here. Patios don't usually last this long. And even if they do, people choose to just sit inside because it's warmer and more comfortable. And so we're still seeing now a huge discrepancy between what the polls are telling us, oh, the majority of Canadians agree with this, and what's happening in real life. People are not going inside the restaurants. So there's way more people who don't agree than who agree, just by sampling the local numbers with your own eyes, not listening, of course, to what the mainstream pollsters are telling us. So it's kind of weird to hold all of that in your head and figure out, okay, where are we really in this whole information war? Because, man, the fog of Wu is really, really thick still.
It is really thick. But what do you think about the Southwest Airlines then? This is really hitting even mainstream news, because just shows there's certain things they can't avoid. Now, my daughter just flew home this weekend, so overjoyed, as I've already said, but her teammates are now stranded somewhere because their flight was cancelled internally within America. So this is really making people question, isn't it, about why are they standing up? And it just shows it can be done, doesn't it?
Right. And again, now suddenly, I'll say the word here, everybody's a terror, and then, use the ending of that word. And it's like, at first it started with the nurses. They were heroes. Now they're not. So we had our pilots, they're heroes, they're war veterans, and now suddenly they're not. They're the opposite. And now we're also seeing some doctors speak up here in North America, and they're being persecuted and used or labeled in those terms. And for a lot of the normies, they're like, wait a second, that doesn't make sense, right? So again, the more these guys do these extreme measures, the more people are waking up. But Southwest Airlines, I posted that the first inkling, I think, was Friday. And then there was another news article yesterday. Now more flights were canceled. And on Friday said, oh, there's just a few disruptions. And the media tried to avoid the reason why there was disruptions. But now 100 more, or then 600 more flights were canceled. Okay, there's more going on here. What the hell's going on? And the media can't deal with this at all because, again, it goes directly against the narrative that everybody agrees. Now, here in Canada, it's the same thing. We're not seeing the airline unions, pilots unions speak out directly. At least I haven't seen evidence of that in that. But the airlines themselves are in line with the government. That we kind of expected. But as we get closer to our deadlines here as well for these mandates, more people are jumping the fence here. So it'll be interesting to see. Just like it was last week when we saw the higher ups in the bureaucracy start to survey their employees to say, hey, are you going to meet this requirement? Because here's the thing, this new mandate is supposed to take effect by October 29th. Yet they were asking all their staff to comply with it last Friday. We're like, hold on a second. You guys just passed a brand new legislation and the requirement date is October 29, and now you've forwarded that to October 6 or 7, whatever it was last week. What the hell's going on? So they're under pressure to achieve their objectives here by these deadlines. So again, my gut feeling here, it's a time game. Time's on our side, not on theirs. So again, keep sharing the truth and bide your time. Avoid dealing with them. Don't give in, make them fire you if they have to, because I'm listening to a lot of lawyers right now who are just like, this is not going to turn out well for those guys. Like, they're going to have massive lawsuits, massive recompensation for employees who've been fired or time loss and all this stuff. So it's going to be one hell of a fight.
It really is, isn't it? And I think the more people can do, I think you've hit the nail on the head in terms of it's a time game. In my last show with Janine, we were talking about this and talking about the timescales, how again it's no coincidence that all these timescales are converging all over the world. And I think that's my main message to people is stall, do whatever you can to stall. Ask them to show you where it's law, ask them to show it's isolated, ask them to write to you and explain how they're going to protect your rights, ask them to show how they're going to guarantee to you it's not causing harm. I know also the Children's Health Defence are having some really good successes with the colleges or universities in America as well. So stalling is really, really important at this time, just to do everything you can to put off these big decisions. And here in Britain as well, when the pubs and restaurants opened up after the last lockdown, it was hysterical because we were all sitting there in our coats and woolly hats and jumpers and umbrellas because only the gardens were open, and we were going to get our glass of wine in the pub or things, and we didn't care even if it was freezing cold and it was thing. We were going to jolly well make sure we did it. So I can get your woolly jumpers out and go and sit out there.
Yeah, pretty much the same here. But on your point of stalling, while you're stalling, and this is the homework part, and a lot of people don't like doing homework, but at this point, this is your life. This is your career. This is your family's safety. This is your financial safety. And we didn't get on this topic yet. So while you're stalling, you need to educate yourself. You need to contact your local, how you call it? I'm trying to find the word in English. Workforce arbitrage kind of lawyers, these people who know about human resources law and all this stuff, like contact them to know what specifically you're protected on in your specific jurisdiction, because it varies from province to province here in Canada. So make sure you're aware how the law protects you. And so when your employer says, hey, you got to do this by this by this, you can say, hey, actually, hold on a second here. You're going against provincial mandate here, right? So you have to serve them back their own food. So while you're stalling, you really need to educate yourself, because if you don't have this at the tip of your hand, then the only thing they do is come back at you and say, okay, now you're trying to resist, you're trying to sabotage, you're a bad employee. And no. If you bring back the law to them and say, hey, I'm trying to comply, but can we make sure we're complying with every aspect of our legislation here in whatever jurisdiction we're in? So you guys have to really pay attention and seek out those people and those community members who are on the hot trail right now of this information. So, a lot of hard work for sure.
Yeah, really good point, Jean-Claude, because I think, I've been, I won't go into too many details on here for obvious reasons, but I've been with both my children at universities and things. And if you really stick to your guns and do that and put the legwork in, there are ways around a lot of this. Now, I'm not saying that's the case for all of them, but I think there's never been, people sort of say to me, well, I haven't got time. And I'm like, well, what is more important at this time? I've got an animal rescue. I'm working full time. I've got a family. I sort of, things. And I would drop everything for this, apart from obviously looking after the animals, because you can't, this is something that has to be dealt with now, isn't it? It's not something we can put off till next year or anything. This is, there really is nothing more important that we can be dealing with at the moment. So
we're all, if you're talking about a billiards analogy, we're all behind the 8 ball. So there's no time. Yes, it is a time. It's a time game, of course, but we also have no time to educate ourselves as we're doing this stalling and this strategic move here to defend ourselves. So no, information is key, and really cut back on Netflix, maybe cut back on whatever it is you do. There's always time. And again, it's like you just said, it's a question of priority. And once you realize how a priority this is for yourself and for your family and for your safety and all that, then suddenly the time becomes available. So, but you need to be in that mindset that I have to be responsible for myself. There's no external savior here. I need to get informed. I need to know what my rights are. I need to basically gather all the ammunition, because here's the thing right now too, and I want to talk about this, gathering ammunition. For a lot of people right now, they want to tend to fire that first salvo right away when they see they're being attacked. And I want to maybe caution them against that, and maybe just step back and then step back again, right? And then continue adding your ammunition, all of your knowledge and all that, and be flexible to which part of that ammunition you're going to use and when, as opposed to just going, popping off willy-nilly here against what you think you're being attacked for. That we need to be very strategic here as we move forward. And again, you don't want to be that first guy to lift your head out of the trenches and get shot here. So again, stepping back, looking at the big picture, and while you're doing that, study, and gather all the ammunition you need. And again, sharing. While you're doing that, share with everyone. And it's funny now, I'm talking to people who were not just that post office lady, but people who were staunch supporters of this just a couple of months ago. And now they're like, oh, I think I got hoodwinked, GC. I shouldn't have done that. And now I'm like, I feel bad. And then I don't know where this is going and why. And everybody's in this weird, what the hell's going on? Why? Because I was like, okay, typically when you're forced with a dilemma, I learned this as a young lad, like a toddler. My parents would say, hey, take a piece of paper, split it in two, and write on one side the good things, and on the other side write the bad things, and then you make a list, and then you can weigh your options, right? And then so when you make a list now and you try to find the good things of all of this, I came up with an empty list. So I'm like, okay, it's clear what my decision is, but that still doesn't tell me the whole picture of why they're doing this. And so a lot of people get stuck in the why. Maybe we could talk about this. They're like, well, because I don't understand the why, I'm not going to take action. I'm like, what? Hold on a second. It's not because you don't know the why that you still don't have fundamental truths and facts upon which you can position yourselves here to be flexible to what's coming so that you can adjust yourself. So again, while you're waiting to figure out the why, you still need to do the homework. You still need to share what you have with other people, and you still need to think strategically as to how you're going to be flexible to take all of these moves when the time comes for you to make that move. When we get to those deadlines, in the meantime, you don't want to be acting willy-nilly again. So what's your thought on this? The why, having to understand the why before you act or not act, or a lot of people are stuck in the why and they're not acting, I find.
Yeah, I think it's such a good point. I had an interesting discussion with some of my family members about the why, and I actually felt for the first time ever I was starting to get through, and the bits that I understand the most from my perspective, where my sort of knowledge and expertise lies, is on the health and medical side of things. So going through just and asking, rather than telling them things, and asking them questions about, well, why do you think this? Why do you think that? Got a very different response actually this time. Helped that they'd had a few glasses of wine, so they were a bit more relaxed. But I think this is really, really important that people step back. And you, myself, Janine, Mel, we've all said all the way along that it's really important that we're there for people in a non-judgmental way. For when people do start to see the light. Because I mean, there's plenty of instances in my life, and I'm sure in yours, where I've made decisions that then I look back on and I think, wow, what was I thinking at that time? But at the time I was doing it with the best knowledge available to me. So I think when encouraging people to start asking questions is really, really important. But one of the things I struggle with most is they're not jumping straight in and answering them for them. And that I'm learning a bit slower than I'd like to learn. But I've realised there's no good asking a question and then butting in with your answer. You've got to, even if they leave them time to go away and mull on it and then come back for a bit more. I'm particularly finding this, JC, about the health side of things as well. So one of the things I'm finding a lot, because a lot of my sort of work that I do is health focused and solution focused, whether it's for people or for animals. I know Cliff High's very good at this. I know you said quite a lot of these, information about what people can do. But I think people are still caught in a mentality. I mean, I've got it here. It's like, oh, just take pine needle tea, or just take this, or just take that. And I think we've also got to move away from the mindset that there's problem one solution, and open our minds a bit to look more holistically about our bodies, but also about sorry, I'm just laughing because someone's about to join us. Can't keep a secret very long. So open our minds up to looking a bit more holistically about not only our bodies, but also about the whole situation that's going on. So what is the link between the two towers, between the lockdowns, between the financial situation, between the education system? So holistically in terms of the worldview, and holistically in terms of our body and environment.
Well, that's what I meant earlier about not acting too quickly, because you really need to step back. Again, you could choose to take a path to defend on a specific front and then realize maybe that's not the main front we should be fighting right now in this information war. So stepping back, you get to see all of these fronts together, and then perhaps the bigger picture as to who we're actually fighting and why we're actually fighting, right? So, and again, I was talking about this on it was Sunday. And I was like, I think I have 80% of the picture. And I mean, I'm the type of guy who usually has 99.9% of the picture because I study this a lot. I consume a lot of information on a daily basis from all around the world. And I add to that my intuition and all this stuff. And at best I can do now, after like really, really concentrating maybe a year and a half on this topic, I'm still somewhere maybe at 80, maybe I'm at 70. So it kind of bothers me because I'm usually good at deciphering what's going on around me, and I'm not. So I'm managing the normies who all they have access to is CNN on the 6 o'clock news. They're lucky if they have 5% of the why, right? So their ability to make decisions is very much hindered by the fact that they don't have that big picture. But even me sitting at whatever number I'm at, I'm just guessing, because I think there's parts of it. No, I know. Oh, let's put it this way. I know what I don't know. Like, so I can say that there's things I don't know here still. Like I can assume, I can kind of guess, but they're still in the I don't know situation. And as long as it's there, I've got a little bit of a stress, right? My body's still not at ease because, okay, I've got these plans, but there's still a big chunk here that I'm not aware of. And I'm like, well, where's that front, going to attack us or rear its ugly head? So I don't know about that part yet. So again, this whole part about the audience here, the holistic part you were just saying, is so important. But again, for that, you need to step back, you need to study, you need to spend the time. And right now, what else have you got? Especially if you're going to get fired in a week or two here because of these mandates and you're not willing to comply. Your priority number one job right now is to educate yourself. Speaking about that, hold on a second. We're supposed to have a surprise today. Do we still have a surprise today? Do you know, Catherine?
I think we have a surprise. And I think we should all manifest some intuition coming into this show. What do you think about that? Should we see if we can all put our minds together and manifest someone really intuitive to come and join us and see if they can add some words of wisdom?
Yeah, that would be great. That would be fantastic.
Oh, look who we've got here. How fantastic.
Hey, guys.
Hi, Janine. How are you?
I just couldn't stay away, the two of you.
I know. How funny. I was trying not to giggle. I'm very easy to lose my focus when I'm on StreamYard and see people. What a lovely surprise to have you joining us. How fantastic. How are things with you?
Good. I was just on Sending Ravens channel and I told everybody to come over here.
Oh, awesome. Hi, everyone joining us from that. So, yeah, we were just talking, Janine, as you probably heard, about looking at everything, sort of ourselves, our environment, but also the whole situation in a holistic way.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I just caught the tail end of that, and what Jean-Claude was saying about everybody facing like big decisions. Like our whole world depends on what people do going forward. It's like, if you say yes to the tyranny, well, we're just gonna keep in the matrix. I mean, that's how big it is. We have to step away from and recreate our world, or we won't have a natural world left. They're trying to take away everything nature. They're trying to take away your immune system. They're discrediting it. They've been taking away our food sources one at a time, creating these fast food places to be where everybody's getting their food. I mean, obviously a lot of us didn't buy into that, but a large part of the population in inner cities can't even get good, healthy food. They only can go to these little grocers, and they're all just junk food, like kind of a 7-Eleven version of some, a grocery store. It's not even a grocery store, and they're getting like fast foods, and they don't even have access to fresh food. They're making it so you can't even grow vegetables in your front yard. Like, I find that ludicrous. Why can't you, if you bought a piece of property, you can grow whatever you want on your piece of property.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. It's just madness. And I think the great thing is people can see that madness. A lot of people can, but I still think people can be a bit tougher, as we'd say here, grow a pair of balls. So, because, I do think it's a very interesting one. I was having a really good debate over a bottle of wine with Andrea, who's on the show here and said hello to you on Saturday night, Janine, about, isn't it interesting how even though it's got to this stage, a lot of people are still waiting for someone else to do something about it. I mean, how are you both finding that?
Go ahead, Janine, go first.
Oh, I can't believe it. Like I was just saying, like a few minutes ago, I was just saying, you know, it is time to do something. Red October is action, even though red to some people means stop. It means alert. To me, it means alert, and it means, okay, it's gotten to red, so we have to actually take action because it's hot right now. And if we don't take action, and that includes leave your job if you're that pushed up against a wall, or at least be prepared to take your children out of school, stand up for your truth, because your job won't be around anymore, or the whole world won't be, if we don't do something. So it really, you don't have a choice. Like thinking you still have a choice, and if you just comply, will not work anymore, because the world won't be the same. Like it isn't ever going to be the same, but it'll be far worse than you can imagine if you keep complying. Yeah, because just you're getting literally put into a cage. We're getting put into cages.
You know, you're making a good point. I was having this debate over the weekend, and I'm seeing this narrative from the love and light community where, and I'll choose my words here for this to make sense and not get triggered off here. But essentially what they're saying, or what they're espousing, is that, you know, as light bodies and as evolved beings, we have absolutely the power to countervene some of the effects of the things that are, so we shouldn't worry about that, and we could just, you know, take it and move on, type of thing. And I kind of took offense to that, in the sense that I was like, well, I understand that. I understand that, yes, we are very strong. We're stronger than we know. I understand also that we have an immune system that is a lot stronger than we are being told also. And there's other things we can do to increase that capacity without having to resort to big pharma. But that said, I'm like, you're missing the point. If you're taking the thing, thinking, oh, I can defend against this because I'm a light body, what you're not defending against is the tyranny and the controlled enslavement and the new system of enslavement 2.0 that they're trying to corral us in. So if you all just agree to this now, that we're going to an even more tighter control system or extraction energy matrix than we were before. And so I was saying, I think you guys are missing the picture there. Anyways, I wasn't too popular with this crowd when I said that, but I'm like, you guys need to think about the bigger picture, as Catherine was saying, step all the way back and look at the holistic approach here. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the thing is, you're actually up against a human lesson. So we come here, souls in a physical body, and we're learning. So everything's a learning process. So the lesson, obviously, is to say no, to have boundaries, actually, to have boundaries against, entities that have been literally controlling mankind, maybe for thousands of years. Mm-hmm. So once we know that, so that light body group likely knows that, okay, or they shouldn't call themselves a light body group if they haven't figured that out yet. So if they do know that, then they must know that there's a lesson. You have to get through the lesson first. In every card reading, I would always lay out what the universe needs you to do before this thing likely will happen. Okay, so if you want X, Y, and Z kind of result, you likely have to do a few things first. It doesn't just magically happen. You have to do the work.
Yeah.
You have to learn to love yourself. You have to learn the boundaries. You have to learn. You can't just sit there and rely on. People are not spiritually evolved enough, for the most part, even if they think they are, okay, to just transcend poison in your body yet, or we'd have done it with all the diseases. We'd have already done that if we were, and maybe there are some, exceptions to that. But generally speaking, to tell just a large amount of people that doesn't make sense. They have to actually do the work. The work being learn what they're trying to teach themselves through the situation, which is boundaries, self-love, and standing up for oneself. That's actually part of being a human. You have to do that. So in the spirit world, you might not have to do that. But here on the physical earth plane, you actually literally have to do that.
And presumably also, if you're in this love and light community and you're enlightened, you're also fighting for those humans who have not reached that stage yet. And so, as you're saying, they can defend themselves against this just by pure will or thought. And fighting this control matrix right now is also paramount number one. And again, as we are between these two systems, I'm encouraged because we have a shot at this, perhaps for the first time in thousands of years, to end this once and for all. We're at that point now. And I think, again, when I said I was at 70 or 80%, I think part of the reason why they've pushed up this timeline for themselves is because they know they're out of time, and we're at a point now where we are about to waken up to that critical number, which eventually leads to the Marie Antoinettes and the guillotines and all that. They know this number very well, and when humanity is close to that frequency of gelling together and saying this far no further, it's the end game for them. And I think they know that frequency is rising much faster than they wanted. And this is why they're doing all of this stuff in disarray in the last minute, forcing everything, looking crazy, making mistakes, going against their own policies in many cases, because they see that number growing way, way, way too fast. So it's encouraging. But again, it's only encouraging if you watching the show do your part, because I'm you and you're me. We're all in this together.
I completely agree with both of you. We're all connected energetically. And going back to that saying that a lot of us have used for ages, actions speak louder than words. If you think that if you're complying and going along with this, you are sending out to a message to the universe energetically that that's okay and it doesn't matter. And every person that complies makes it more likely that you tip over the critical mass of it being pushed everywhere. And I think this is the problem. I think I saw one of the comments are flicking through so fast, but one of the listeners was saying earlier, people think, oh, I can do it, and then I'll rely on other people to heal me from it. And I really get frustrated with that. I think that attitude has to go. Yes, of course, if you have a change of consciousness and you've made a genuine mistake, there are definitely things that can be done. But if you're going in there just reliant on someone else to heal you from it, then beware, because again, what message are you sending out energetically into the universe, and what are you actually contributing to the world at this time, if that's the action that you're going to take and then leave it to someone else to sort it out for you?
That's what got us into this mess. We left everything up to governments, higher ups in our systems. Systems were all created, by the way, by demonics, we find out. So all of those systems that we've been relying on and or potentially even looking up to, like in the case of, for instance, my parents, they literally look up to the government and still the Pope, if you can imagine. So it's like, wow, right? There's people who actually put their entire life force energy in the hands of demonics, which they're still doing it. We've all done it to some degree till we woke up and figured out, this isn't right, depending on when you woke up to that. But there's a whole bunch of people that still actually do that. That's what got us into this, exactly this big lesson we're in.
Do you guys want to talk about supply chain? I see a few comments. People are asking, hey, Janine, can you pull cards on why the cargo ships can't dock and why we're seeing all of these weird supply chain issues? Again, This was in the WebBot data over a year and a half ago. They were talking about this, and to the point where new jobs would be created from people. And I think the code word was Demolition Dana. So this was this female character that would rise up here and start dismantling these old malls and these old buildings to get the copper and all the things that we need because of this supply chain management. So do you guys want to talk about that a little bit to see where we're going with this?
Definitely.
I've never laid cards on it before, so this is going to be interesting. I've been meaning to. So this is exciting, actually. Okay, the first thing I want to say about it, interesting, is this card comes up. So that card is a temporary setback based in focus on the past instead of the present situation, okay, or somehow somebody disappointing us in the past. Okay, that's interesting because the card isn't a major arcana, so the holdups will likely be more temporary than what maybe some people believe. Because this card's a 5, It's not a major arcana. And then there's an ace. Okay, so I think it'll ride out and really we'll really start to see where we're missing some things that are sitting in those cargo ships. Some places are already starting to see empty shelves, but within the close up of the year and the beginning of next year, I think the countries we're all from, so Canada, UK, and the US, I think we'll see, and depending on where you're from, you might see it as well, but we'll really start to see some things that are held up and or no longer available or whatever. But things get righted much sooner, and we go in a completely different direction because of it. It actually leads people in a different direction. And I felt like it went, here was the direction. So I asked what was the direction. This card came up, which is, this card's about more focused on so this guy's careful and he's very localized. So he'd be locally. So I think things get more local and people start relying on somebody who knows how to fix things instead of going out and buying something. Somebody who, like, they start to come up with ways they can make the things they're missing. They go without some things, okay, but it won't be nearly as bad, according to this, or for as long. So this has already been taken into consideration by, I think, the Alliance. And there's some things already put in place to help this not be as devastating as it otherwise would.
I think you're tapping into something there too, because Cliff High was talking about this self-organizing collective who's been fighting this fight here perhaps since Kennedy was taken off the Earth's plane. Now, he was also saying that perhaps these people would already be planning to reignite the manufacturing base, the entrepreneurship in North America, because all of these were devolved or moved to China and other countries back in the late 80s, early 90s. So there might already be a plan here to start to reboot that, and that could be part of the reset here. Go ahead, Janine.
That's what that looks like. So it's been done in secret. But there's certain communities that are going to rebuild themselves around various different operations that have maybe been long shut down. So I feel like they're going to resurrect, as it were, some things that it's like we get our freedom back, because now we're not just relying on a foreign country to get all our stuff. Why should we do that? It's absurd. Like countries like Canada and the US, the amount of food they can grow, the amount of things they could make themselves. It's absurd that we've been like all of this, like shop everything out to the lowest common denominator, cheapest priced thing. Okay, that's got to stop. We've known that for a long time. It's not sustainable, and it hasn't been working. It's not working. People, it's just a throwaway junk society. Everybody's buying junky things that last a few years. I think things are going to change to a little more quality. And people have to, and I believe that money is not going to be as big an issue as everybody thinks. I think we're going to get more ability to create abundance. So we'll have to reshape what we believe something's worth, and pay what it's worth, and pay workers what they're worth, not just shop things out to the cheapest, where people are being taken advantage of. All of that isn't sustainable, and is not a way to treat humans or the way we treat animals as well.
Right.
Buying the cheapest because they're not taking care of their animals, and do you know what I mean? Like the whole thing is not based in a good foundation. So we're going to have to rewrite it all, but we know how to do it.
Yeah, and it's exciting. World of opportunities. A lot of people are saying, "Oh, I'm going to lose my job. What am I going to do?" I think there's going to be a ton of opportunities here moving forward as we rebuild these new systems. That's my gut feeling. I don't think I know it deep inside. Janine, can we pull cards maybe on the next, let's say 7 days? We just saw over this weekend the Southwestern airline pilots take issue or take a position, and there's like hundreds of flights already. I think we're at 700 all total today that have been canceled about this. And we saw earlier this morning Amtrak also delaying trains and all this around North America. So this is going to my question is, how much is this going to make it to mainstream to really crack that narrative here? And as you know, Janine, here in Canada, just yesterday too, the big pollsters were saying, oh, the majority of Canadians agree, don't worry, everything's fine. Actually, they don't. And when you look at what these pilots are doing and these train operators are doing, there's more resistance here to be felt. And this is, they can't hide this. The mainstream media can't hide this. People are using these services and now suddenly they can't use them and they're wondering what the hell's going on. Can we pull some cards here for the next 7 days to see if that's going to accelerate this big awakening process and this breakdown into the narrative?
Something we've wished for a really long time, being the community we're talking to right now. So the truther community, something we've wished for is going to come true in 6. So that's interesting because that's a 6 here, and it's to the advantage of. So it's a rah-rah moment that we can celebrate. Okay, and I feel like it's been coming. It's something that's been slowly coming for a really long time. Interesting. I don't know exactly what that would be. So we've got 7, and well, I know one thing that I've been waiting. So we've been waiting for it, and it moves things in a positive direction for humanity, and it may have something to do with money, large amounts of money. So I wonder if that has something to do with the money system showing itself. The RV reset, let a lot of people talk about, could that actually happen? Which, you know, everybody's waiting on pins and needles for years. Could that actually happen? Could something happen financially in the world that could prove that what we've been saying is right? Because that's kind of what this looks like. But it looks like it'll be like a moment where we literally could get on our shows and celebrate with our people, because this is take a victory lap, but it's not the conclusion or anything, of course, because we got a lot of work to do, but it's going to be something that really starts things rolling over the other side of this, which we
like a catapult or that propels us. Yeah. Wow.
It's so exciting, isn't it? Because everything we're talking about, like the cutting down of the supply chains and everything, you know, really when we've been looking at it in terms of what's wrong with the way that a human race has been living, with the excess, as you say, the excess, the way we treat animals, the way we treat the land, with the way we treat other people, the way we treat ourselves, actually, is sometimes there is this greater force, and I think it's the good side force that are forcing us to actually relook at everything and cut all the crap out of our lives and really go back to what's important. And the knock-on benefits of that are just so exciting for all of us, because look at all the health issues that most people, most animals have had over the last sort of century, really, where there's been so much excess, so much pollution, so much contamination. And a lot of that's just going to disappear when we make these changes, that we might be being forced to make some of them, but actually there's definitely a greater good that's intervening and making this happen.
When you were talking earlier, Janine, about we talked about the love and light people saying, oh, we can do this, blah, 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 and you said, hey, they're missing the lesson here. Catherine just said something about cutting the crap out of our lives, and that brings another concept here of having to mourn the losses of the things that we thought were part of our makeup, of our requirements on a daily basis. So let's talk about that on the Soul Collective here. How far are we along understanding here that we still have to mourn a lot of these old thinkings, programs, belief structures, and institutions here that have to fall away before we create the new? Again, this is the conversation we all need to be having, because if we're holding on so tight to all that old stuff, we're not making room for that new stuff. But in between, we have to go through this mourning process and understanding why it's difficult for us to let go of these things and why we're so emotionally attached to them. Is it because there's a good karmic reason, or is it because we were programmed in such a way to be attached to these things, perhaps in a very unhealthy fashion? How can we help the audience here navigate that mourning and also detaching from those things that are no longer serving them?
So patience and time is going to heal that. And like, it all depends on people's personality types too. Some people really hang on to the past and even bad relationships, and other people, depending on their birth chart, etc., and just how they've created their life or whatever, look forward to change. But I find more people don't look forward to change, hang on, and they will be mourning. There will be a lot of people mourning. You're talking to somebody who the biggest thing I'm afraid of is the lack of change. So I love change. It didn't take me long to jump on and go, okay, I get it. The whole world has to change. Everything we thought we knew was a lie. Unconsciously, I knew that anyway. Okay, let's do this. Let's figure this out. So, but that's not everybody. Not everybody. And I think people on platforms like what we're doing here, the three of us, we may have more of a ability to do that, that's why we're actually frontline in this spiritual war. But a lot of people don't. Even really great people that are digital soldiers, and there's a lot of fear underlying in the human nature to go forward into total change. So it's going to take time, and lots of healers are going to be busy because that's a healer's card. So a lot of us are going to need to seek out people working on emotional healing, working people through things. Like I had a healing that I talked about with Madeline. I always say her name wrong, but the Australian gal, and I shouted her out on my channel, my Sending Ravens, and she actually worked me through a past life thing that I bumped into during a show, one of my shows. She saw that I was in a lot of pain over, and it was a past life thing. All of that can be healed. The only thing you're hanging on to is our past life attachment to being enslaved, frankly, because we've been over lifetimes. We've been enslaved. So we might even be hanging on to giving up all our rights, because the good thing about that is you don't have to think for yourself. Right? So some people are going to mourn that now they have to actually wake up and live their life. Okay, but honestly, I got to be honest, I don't have tons of patience for people that don't see that as a blessing, and B, I'm not feeling too sorry for anybody who they're going to have to just get over it. Sorry, right? I don't believe in feeling sorry for people. I got to be honest. I can have compassion, but all my clients will tell you when stuff really hit the fan and they came to see me and they were all feeling sorry for themselves, I'd set them straight right now. It's like, what? Don't waste your time. I'm not going to feel sorry for you because you chose the lesson, and you'll become a more powerful, incredible person because of it. So just let's do this. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And all of us are going to have to get strong like that.
Absolutely. And speaking about trauma and soul healing, Catherine, if you want to bring up the poster I just put in the share screen here for the audience, Janine and I will be interviewing Medine, I believe is how I pronounce her name, and then we all get it wrong here, but she will be on with Janine and I on October 9th at 9 p.m. Eastern time. October 19th, sorry, at 9 p.m. Eastern time, and we're looking forward to that show. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's the one I was talking about.
Yeah,
she's awesome.
It is fantastic. And I think there's so much as well, because, you know, a lot of the time, the way a lot of people live now, we've actually got too much time to feel sorry for ourselves. And I think I was mentioning to you, Jean-Claude, in terms of some of the work that the animals have been communicating to me, is very much just that sometimes us humans really make too much of a deal of things. You know, we actually overcomplicate things a lot of the times, and a lot of the problems that we're actually trying to sort out, when we make that decision and that commitment to do so, can be a lot easier than we actually anticipate it to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. And it's just like, who said that the other day? It's like, oh, it's like you're holding on to this rope for dear life. Oh my God, I'm going to fall. And then you look down, you're just 6 inches away from the ground, dude. You got this. You're going to be okay, you know? So that's where a lot of us are right now. Like, we have all of this uncertainty. And I'm with Janine. I've always, as a kid, wanted change and pushed for change, whereas all my friends like, no, status quo, conservatism, like, you know, I'm like, no, break it all apart. So I've been a system buster all of my life. And it just feels now that we're coming into really in earnest that era in humanity's trajectory, and it's exciting, but at the same time, yes, it is nerve-wracking, even for us. Sometimes Janine and I talk, sometimes we're like, whew, okay, that was a lot of energy, especially the one last week when Janine and I did the show with Tamara. We both went for a loop here for a couple of days after that, kind of rejigging all of that information, because we're all so connected with a lot of these old temporal wars and karmic loops, and it's all happening now at the same time as we're doing these shows, and it's just fascinating to watch and be a part of it. And I'm just so happy to be here with Catherine and you, Janine. You guys are amazing.
Right on.
It's so important. I think people are really, again, another conversation, and I don't know how you two have been finding this over the last few weeks, is when all of this kicked off a year and a half ago now, a lot of people sort of lost attachments, lost relationships, old relationships, whether it's with family, friends, etc., and formed new communities of people that were more like-minded. But what a lot of people have seen in the last month or so is those new communities have been together for over a year now, and now the cracks are starting to show there, and they're moving on to the next side of things, because I think we are all constantly evolving, and it's a bit like the honeymoon period when you've got a new partner or a new friendship. You can all be ultra polite, and then the longer you get to know each other, the more the real sort of conversations start happening, and then perhaps you find that you're not as aligned as you thought you were. But we're seeing this both on the sort of public stage and in people's private lives at the moment, aren't we?
Go ahead, Janine.
That is interesting. That exact thing is absolutely happening in my life. Right away when this first started, it was like I couldn't talk to any of my old friends. So online, I created a whole bunch of new connections, and you two are very much in the highlight of that. You know what I mean? And so, but you know, lots of new connections, some of them just on email, like, right. So we've never actually met those people in person, because I've barely been out of my house literally for a couple of years. Like, really. So crazy, right? So I certainly haven't traveled or anything. But then what I'm finding is circling back to old connections, because they do deeply know you. And if everybody can just get over the differences in thinking, and my way of thinking about it is some of those old connections might come back because they were built over 25 years, 30 years, some of them. And when the dust settles and it becomes known to everybody that we've been hoodwinked, I think we're going to need each other.
Well, two things. One, I absolutely agree with that. Remain open and compassionate for those old relationships, because they're probably swallowing that red pill as we speak now in a much shorter time frame than you and I did, and they're eventually going to come back, and you need to make room for them if it makes sense, of course, in your karmic life and in your soul contract. So that's one. The other thing, though, too, what you were describing, Catherine, I think this is very important too, to have this conversation. And Janine and I kind of touched this maybe a month ago on our channel. We had some issue with some limited hangouts here on YouTube, right? So what you describe is, okay, we lost a community because we don't think like each other because of the situation around the planet. And then people came here and they found a new community, only to discover that perhaps in this community, it was just another limited hangout. And for example, Janine and I were talking about some other YouTubers who said, well, you can't interview this person because that person talked to that person and that person talked to that. I'm like, what the hell are you guys talking about? We're all supposed to be sharing with each other right now. That's the whole point. So if you guys are creating a new box here where you're not allowed to speak to other people, you're just basically recreating that same template we had before that those people just got out of, and they're looking to have no templates now. So that's my gripe for that. So if you're watching this show and you have some YouTube hosts that you're watching and you realize that perhaps they are also trying to, maybe willingly or unwittingly, maybe they're not being willing about it, but still notice that for yourselves, that if you're dropped into another limited hangout where you're being told don't listen, don't listen, don't listen, maybe expand your thoughts a little bit here, because my point of view on all of this is listen to everyone, but follow no one, right? Follow your own self, do that intuition, that inner guidance thing. But for that, you need to be open to all of the information and not propagate that old system of creating these small limited hangouts, because again, that is just another system of control. And that's what we're trying to get out from underneath.
Yep.
100%, and also having the humility to actually be the first person to reconnect with the others and ask if they're okay, because sometimes just a message or a phone call or if you can a personal connection, and just actually not talking about what's going on but ask them if they're okay, can mean the world to someone as well, particularly at these times.
Yeah, absolutely. Catherine, we're already at the 1 hour mark. It goes too fast.
It goes much, much too fast. It's just so lovely to have you join us. I mean, can we ask Janine just quickly if you can? I know we've sort of said what's happening now, but there's lots of dates popping up in October that people are concerned about. Could we just ask the cards, what do people need us to know right now or prepare for right now? And someone's saying 2665 viewers. It's actually well over 3,500 because we've got different channels streaming. So you'll only see the viewers on the ones you're looking at. So we really appreciate everyone joining us tonight. It's such great interaction as always.
And of course, if you're watching this on Catherine's channel, hit that like button and subscribe to Catherine's channel. She's also trying to rebuild her community here after having been deleting. And I want to support you guys, her, and you guys are going to support her as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Janine.
Something interesting in the media that'll be really unique. And I know we've seen slips, we've seen truths come out in the mainstream media in little tiny bits here and there. You have to really look for them. But I feel like something a lot more substantial is going to sort of drop itself in the mainstream media. It'll come from maybe another country, though, with that 7. This is sort of an exotic card. So maybe not any of the countries represented on like ourselves. So I always lump in the US with the Canadian and the UK. Catherine's bringing the UK energy. So on whoever's on this chat, it's going to be exotic to us. So it'll come from a different mainstream media, maybe Australia. They've been some really interesting slips have happened there. So I feel like finally we get to see this where a mainstream media actually tells the truth, because this is a breakthrough card. We've been seeing it's getting really close to something like that, because we're going to have a breakthrough with the mainstream media. And also we're going to have some kind of a justice served in the public eye. Well, we've been getting that for a while, so I can't wait to see that. And I was on Nicholas Viniamans this morning, and we got that it would be a powerful woman. So we've been all over the place with who's it going to be, trying to narrow it down. And today it actually looked like it might be Oprah. And we know that, as far as I'm concerned, she's been rounded up a long time ago. But I got a feeling they'll do a public rounding up of a very powerful woman. Queen comes to mind. Oprah comes to mind.
And what you're talking about, also the media saying the truth somewhere. Cliff High was picking up about 2 months ago that somewhere around the 18th of October, give or take maybe 5 days, he was looking at what he termed a media casualty. So basically a media that, is no longer part of the army of propaganda. So that's fascinating. And Catherine, if you want to bring up my share screen also, I just pointed out this morning. Again, this was also coming up in the cards for Janine and I for about a month now. These are geomagnetic storms hitting the Earth today that could cause, again, power grid failures, satellite communication failures. And this is why Janine and I had put this coupon code for the audience, Stay Connected, which is a 10% off here of our Insider Access Pass here as we move into these weird, untroubled times here where we might have some disruptions in our payment systems and processing payment systems. So if you guys are already part of our memberships, you'll be able to access at least the stuff that's already online there during these weird, crazy disruption times. So anyways, I wanted to share that. And again, we keep seeing these things pop up. So it's funny when we pick it up in the cards, and then over and over and over again, we're seeing these things happening. And we have the banking system too. Janine and I will be talking about that in the 2 next episodes we have today, and also the live stream. But there's weird things happening now in Lebanon where people have been denied their savings from their bank account. So that whole issue of what's happening now with the reset, which countries are going to be signing on board with this on behalf of humanity, and which of those countries are perhaps going to try to stay and fight and keep this system of control and debt slavery against humanity. So we'll be having these conversations here a little bit later today.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us all. Thank you for everyone who's been in the chat. Janine, thank you so much for joining us. And Jean-Claude, let's do this again soon, guys, because there's so much to talk about and it's so lovely to have you both together. For everyone watching, please do go Tarot by Janine and Sending Ravens, BeyondMystic 3 and my channel. Please do like, subscribe and share. It means a lot to us and it really helps. And we should all connect again very, very soon, individually and together. Thanks all. Bye.
Anytime. Au revoir.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.